بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to the Ramadan 2020 series, Quranic Gems. And yesterday we covered the 11th surah of the Quran from the 11th and the 12th juz of Quran, which was Surah Al-Hud, the chapter about Prophet Hud alayhi salam. We briefly reviewed the story of Prophet Hud and mentioned that Prophet Hud alayhi salam was the first Arab prophet, and the people of Hud, Ad, they were the first Arab nation from the descendants or the descendants of Shem, one of the sons of Prophet Noah, who was actually on the ark, who was a believer and rode on the ark with Prophet Noah alayhi salam. And Ad, he from the civilization of Aram, were known to the Quraysh as the ancient and extinct Arabs, whom they were familiar with from a genealogy perspective. And today we will cover, by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the 12th surah of the Quran, which is found in both the 12th juz and the 13th juz of the Quran, which is Surah Yusuf alayhi salam, the chapter about the Prophet Yusuf, or in the biblical name is Prophet Joseph. And this surah of the Quran is given the name of Yusuf because it mentions the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam in its entirety in one place, whereas the other stories of the prophets, they are mentioned throughout the Quran. And it focuses on different aspects of their lives, or different aspects of their da'wah, or different interactions that they had with their own people. However, the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, it is a complete story from beginning to end, all found in this particular surah, Yusuf. So so we're going to look at some glimpses of the story of Prophet Yusuf today, and we're going to start with verse number 3, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, نَحْنُ نَقُصُ عَلَيْكَ أَحْسَنَ الْقَصَصِ بِمَا أُوحَيْنَا إِلَيْكَ هَذَا الْقُرْآنَ وَإِن كُنْتَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ لَمِنَ الْغَافِلِينَ. We are going to relate to you the best of all stories that we have revealed to you in this Quran, and is referring to the story of Yusuf alayhi salam, and also referring to how that this story was revealed in this entirety. And you were unaware of it from before. This is the first time being informed about the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And in verse number 4, which is actually where the story begins, إذ قال يوسف لأبيه يا أبت إني رأيت أحد عشر كوكبا والشمس والقمر رأيتهم لي ساجدين. And when Yusuf, he said to his father, and his father was Prophet Yaqub alayhi salam, "Oh my dear father, indeed I saw in a dream 11 planets and the sun and the moon. I saw them prostrating to me." So this is where the story of Prophet Yusuf actually begins. It begins with Yusuf alayhi salam having this dream and going to his father, informing him about this dream, and then his father is giving him advice of what to actually do or what not to do. But eventually, the brothers of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, they were actually jealous of Yusuf, because Yusuf, he was the second youngest, and of course, as the youngest child, or the second youngest child, the father is going to have a little bit more compassion and have a little bit more attachment, to the younger children. So the brothers of Prophet Yusuf, they felt that that Prophet Yaqub loved Yusuf alayhi salam more, so they plotted against him. They wronged Prophet Yusuf, and they ganged up on him to distance him from their father, Prophet Yaqub. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse number 9, "Uqtulu Yusuf aw atrahuhu ardan yakhlu lakum wajha abikum wa takunu min ba'di qawmin salihin. So they first tried to plot to kill him, and then it was suggested that they just basically throw him in a distant land, and then they, basically put him in the well, so that he can be far away from their father as possible. And they thought that, by doing this, that Prophet Yaqub will, they would earn his love if Yusuf alayhi salam was not present. But they were wrong. So eventually he was thrown into the well by his brothers, and a caravan came that was traveling, and they was passing by, and they came to this well where Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, where he was actually in, and they found Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam in this particular well. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention of this in verse number 19. وَجَاءَتْ سَيَّارَةٌ فَأَرْسَلُوا وَارِدَهُمْ فَأَدْلَى دَلْوَهُ. And when the caravan came, they sent someone to fetch water, and then this person lowered the bucket in the well. فَقَالَ يَا بُشْرَ هَذَا غُلَامٌ. And instead of the water coming out, it was Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and he says, "Oh, what glad tidings, what good news of this young boy." So they basically took Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, and they continued, and they were actually heading to Egypt at that time. And when they reached Egypt, they actually sold Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam into servitude, and they sold him for a meagerly price. They sold him for less than what he was actually worth if they only knew who they had in their possession. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in verse 20 says, وَشَرَوهُ بِثَمَنٍ بَخْسٍ دَرَاهِمَ مَعْدُودَةٍ وَكَانُوا فِيهِ مِنَ الزَّاهِدِينَ. And they sold him for a meagerly price, a small amount of silver coins, and they were unaware of who they actually had in their possession. And so who bought Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam? And when we say buying, basically he was sold into slavery. He was sold into servitude. And so he was sold to Al-Aziz, who was the prime minister of Egypt at that time. And he recognized the benefit in Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 21, وَقَالَ الَّذِي اشْتَرَاهُ مِنْ مِصْرَ لِامْرَأَتِهِ أَكْرِمِي مَثْوَاهُ عَسَىٰ أَن يَنْفَعَنَا أَوْ نَتَّخِذَهُ وَلَدًا. So the one who actually purchased him, he told his wife to basically honor him, to take good care of him, and perhaps he's going to be of some benefit for us, or we can actually adopt him as a child, because he did not have a child from his wife. وكذلك مكنا ليوسف في الأرض ولنعلمه من تأويل الأحاديث. Right, and we basically made this place, this new land, a place of residence for Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, so that we can actually teach him from the ta'wil al-hadith, from the interpretation of dreams. And we will see in the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam how he was given the opportunity to interpret 2 dreams, where he was unable to actually interpret his own dream, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as if he is putting him in this situation so that he is able to utilize the talent that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with. Wallahu ghalibun ala amrihi walakinna akthara an-nasi la ya'lamun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he will carry out his command. However, many people, they do not know. They are actually unaware. So what happened after this was the wife of Aziz was actually attracted to Prophet Yusuf, because we know that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he was given half of the beauty of humanity, or half of beauty during his time. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best the accurate interpretation of this. But he was very handsome, very beautiful young man. So she was driven by her own desires to do evil, and she wanted to, or she tried to actually seduce Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, but she was unsuccessful. And at the end of this incident, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in verse 53, وَمَا أُبَرِّئُ نَفْسِي إِنَّ النَّفْسَ لَعَمَّارَةٌ بِالسُّوءِ إِلَّا مَا رَحِمَ رَبِّي إِنَّ رَبِّي غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. She basically said that, I do not, uh, I blame myself. My soul is not free. My soul is not innocent. Indeed, the soul, it commands to do evil. It commands and encourages to do evil deeds, to do bad deeds, to do wicked things, except who my Lord has mercy upon. Right? Indeed, my Lord is all forgiving and all merciful. This took place, and then another incident took place with the women of the town. And then Yusuf alayhi salam, he was basically given an ultimatum that either you basically follow your own desires and give in, or you go to prison. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he chose prison over following his own desires. So he was wrongfully in prison, right? And when he went, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he makes mention. He says, وَدَخَلَ مَعَهُ السِّجْنَ فَتَيَانِ قَالَ أَحَدُهُمَا إِنِّي أَرَانِي أَعْصِرُ خَمْرًا. So when he entered into prison, two other people entered prison with him, and these were two people that worked for the king. And one of them informed Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam that he saw in the dream that he was actually squeezing wine or making wine. وقال الآخر إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه. And the other person that entered in prison with him said that I see in my dream that I'm carrying on my head bread, or a basket of bread, and birds are actually eating from it. And they requested Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam to actually inform them of the interpretation of these dreams. And they replied, they said to him that indeed we see that you are from the muhsinin, that you are from the doers of good. And then Yusuf alayhi salam, he said that he will informed them of the interpretation of the dream, but before he did that, he actually called them to the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because they did not worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They did not they did not understand the concept of Tawheed. So he informed them about the concept of Tawheed, the concept of the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and worshiping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the end, he informed them of the interpretation of the dream in verse 41, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya sahib as-sijni amma ahduhuma fayasqi rabbahu khamra. Oh, my cellmates, the companions of the prison, as for one of you, you will actually provide wine to the king. وأما الآخر فيصلب وتأكل الطير من رأسه. As for the other one, you will be crucified, and the birds will basically eat from your head. قُضِيَ أَمْرُ الَّذِي فِيهِ تَسْتَفْتِيَانِ. So this is the matter that you all inquired about. And the story goes on. He remains in the prison for some time. His two companions, cellmates, they were actually released. Of course, one of them was punished, and the other one was actually saved and continued to work in the courtyard of the king. And what happened, king, he began to see these strange dreams, and none of his, top people that basically worked for him could interpret this dream. قالوا أصغاث أحلام, right? وما نحن بتأويل أحلام بالعالمين. So he was having these strange dreams, and no one can actually inform him, of the meaning of these dreams until the prisoner that was actually saved and that was working in the courtyard of the king asked permission to actually go and visit Yusuf in the jail so that he can get the interpretation of the dream. So he went to Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam in the prison. Says Yusuf ayyuha siddiqu aftina fi sab'i baqaratin simanin ya'kuduhunna sab'un ijaf wa sab'i sunbulatin khudran wa ukhra yabisat la'alli arji'u ila an-nasi la'allahum ya'lamun. So he went to Prophet Yusuf. He says, oh Yusuf, oh trustworthy, please, I'm inform me about this particular dream. And the verse basically details what the dream is. And the dream, it was about 7 fat cows that were eaten up by 7 slim cows. So the seven slim cows were eating or consuming the 7 fat cows. And then there were 7 ears of corn that were green, that were ripe, and there were some other corn that was actually dry. So he wanted the interpretation of the dream so he can take it back to the people, take it back to the king so that they are informed about what it means. So Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he gives them the interpretation of the dream in verse 47 and 48 and 49. قال تزرعون 7 سنين دأبا فما حصدتم فذروه في صنبله إلا قليلا مما تأكلون. It says that you should graze for the next 7 years. Start grazing now, and basically whatever you harvest, then you should preserve this harvest, except for a little amount, so that you have enough food to survive. ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك 7 شداد يأكلن ما قدمت أو يأكلن ما قدمتم لهن إلا قليلا مما تحصنون. And then after these 7 years, they're going to come 7 difficult years, 7 years of famine, 7 years of drought, so that you can actually, you should eat from what you actually preserve from the previous harvest, except for a little bit. Inshallah. ثم يأتي من بعد ذلك عام فيه يغاث الناس وفيه يعصرون. And after these 7 years of famine, of 7 years of drought, then it will come years of prosperity. So things will basically go back to normal, the agriculture and so forth, so on. So because of this, Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he was elevated by the king of Egypt, and he was given a lofty status in his kingdom, as Allah says in verse 54. وَقَالَ الْمَلَكُ ائْتُونِي بِهِ أَسْتَخْلِصْهُ لِنَفْسِي. So the king said, bring him to me. I'm going to use him for myself, for my own benefit. فَلَمَّا كَلَّمَهُ قَالَ إِنَّكَ الْيَوْمَ لَدَيْنَا مَكِينٌ أَمِينٌ. He said today, when he addressed Prophet Yusuf, he said that today you have a high-ranking place with me, and you are trustworthy. So prior to this, Yusuf alayhi salam, he requested that the king check into the situation of the false accusation that was made against him, and his name was actually cleared, and he again became someone that was trustworthy in the community. And after this time, the drought, so it didn't just affect the people of Egypt, it affected the surrounding areas as well, which included Palestine, Philistine. So the people of Philistine, where the brothers of Prophet Yusuf resided, and his family and his parents and so forth, so on, they had to travel to Egypt, because Egypt at that time was the only place that had any crops, and that can actually benefit the surrounding areas that were suffering from this drought and this famine as well. So the brothers of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, they came, they were seeking support and food from the Egyptians of that time during the years of drought. And Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he recognized them, but they did not recognize him. But he still treated them with the best of hospitality, and he gave them the food. And he actually gave them an extra share, hoping that they will return the next year or after some months for more, because he loved his family. He wanted to actually see him, and then And then after this, when they actually came back, they came back with the younger brother Benjamin and so forth and so on. And the story goes on when they made, several trips. And then eventually Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he informed them that he was Yusuf, their brother, and he showed forgiveness to his siblings, and he pardoned them for their wrongdoing towards him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in verse 92, "Qala la tathriba alaykum al-yawm." He said to his brothers that there's no blame on you today. Yaghfirullahu lakum. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. Wa huwa arhamur rahimin. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he is the all merciful. And then he sent his brothers back to Egypt, and they told them to bring, the entire family to Egypt with him, so that they can live there, because it was difficult times there. And and he sent his shirt that his father was actually familiar with, so that his father could actually recognize that Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam was still alive and safe. And Prophet Yaqub, he had lost his sight, but he regained his sight once he smelled the scent from the shirt of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And in verse 93 and 94, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Idhabu biqamisi hada alquhu ala wajhi abi yati basira." So take my shirt and throw it on the face of my father, and he will again regain his sight. Wa'tuni bi ahlikum ajma'in, and bring the entire family to Egypt. فَلَمَّا فَصَلَتِ الْعِيرُ قَالَ أَبُوهُمْ إِنِّي لَأَجِدُ رِيحَ يُوسُف. And when the caravan was heading back out, and when they was leaving the city of the country of Egypt at that time, the father immediately smelled the scent of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam. And then once they actually came, the entire family came. This is where, again, at the end of the story, the dream of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, it comes true. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in verse 100, وَرَفَعَ أَبَوَيْهِ عَلَى الْعَرْشِ فَخَرُّوا لَهُ سُجَّدًا, and he put his parents on the throne, and then the entire family, the siblings, they bowed down to him in prostration, out of honor, of course, not out of worship. وَقَالَ يَا أَبَتِي هَذَا تَأْوِيلُ رُؤْيَايَ مِنْ قَبْلُ قَدْ جَعَلَهَا رَبِّي حَقًّا. And it says, "Oh my dear father, this is the interpretation of my dream that that I informed you about years ago." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have made it come true. He has made it a reality. وَقَدْ أَحْسَنَ بِي إِذْ أَخْرَجَنِي مِنَ السِّجْنِ وَجَاءَ بِكُم مِنَ الْبَدْوِ مِنْ بَعْدِ أَنْ نَزَغَ شَيْطَانُ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَ إِخْوَتِي. And he recognizes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored him and just treated him well when he released him from prison and restored his honor, and he brought his family to Egypt in his presence, after the shaitan caused some type of jealousy and hatred in his brothers. Inna Rabbi latifum lima yasha. Indeed, my Lord, he is latif, he is gentle, he is kind, and he is subtle in what he does. Innahu huwal alimul hakim. Indeed, he is all-knowing and he is all-wise. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just emphasizing that, the subtleties, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the details. He does certain things out of his infinite wisdom. In verse 101, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, "Rabbi qad ataytani min al-mulki." Oh my Lord, you have given me a portion of kingdom. وَعَلَّمْتَنِي مِنْ تَأْوِيلِ الْأَحَادِيثِ, and you have taught me the interpretation of dreams. So Yusuf alayhi salam, he's recognizing the bounties and favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that he had gifted him with after going through all of these trials and these tribulations. فَاتِرَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ أَنْتَ وَلِيِّي فِي الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. And he recognizes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as being the originator of the heavens and the earth, and that you, Allah, you are my guardian protector in this world as well as in the hereafter. Tawaffani Muslima. And he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cause him to die in his submission, to cause him to die as a Muslim, al-hiqani min al-bisalihin, and to allow me to to join in the ranks of the righteous in the hereafter. And in verse 111, in conclusion, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ فِي قَصَصِهِمْ عِبْرَةٌ لِأُولِي الْأَلْبَابِ. Indeed, there are morals in this story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam for those who have intellect. So again, we learned that there are great rewards from being patient in times of tribulations. And in fact, Surah Yusuf was revealed towards the end of the Meccan period before the Prophet ﷺ, made the hijrah. And all of the difficulties that the Prophet ﷺ went through and his companions, this particular surah that was revealed in this entirety, it gave hope to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and it gave hope to the believers. And at the end, after all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after all of these difficulties, after all of these trials and tribulations, he basically went through the different phases of the lowly class. He was put into servitude, he was put into prison. But then after all of this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically made him the king of Egypt. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed him with the talent of interpreting dreams. So Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he recognized the blessings and the bounties and the favors from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us that quality of patience whenever we're going through difficult times and whenever we are faced with life challenges. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to always recognize his bounties and to recognize his favors that he has bestowed upon us. Jazakumullah khairan. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.